Today, we will be talking about Stronghold and Ripple a little bit, but primarily concentrating on SHx. And that is because we now have a ton of on-chain evidence, which is implying a lot of imminent listings on some huge exchanges. Here we have an overview of what has been happening around SHx over just about a month, and it includes all of the exchanges and entities here. And on top of that, there is also a lot of ETH and XLM being sent, which I'll explain here in a little bit. It is also extremely interesting timing, specifically because SHx just officially rolled out their escrow just about a month ago at this time. And all of the XRP listings on exchanges happened primarily after they rolled out their escrow as well, which is an extremely important tie into Stronghold itself, because Stronghold is essentially a creation of Ripple and Stellar. The XRP price action, which happened after all of its exchange listings and escrow, is possibly something that can be expected for SHx too. We have some people calling for as high as 57 cents in August, and in the mid to long term, just about $1.50. It has been hovering around about 2.4 cents now, which is a huge change compared to just about a month ago. Before we get into the on-chain evidence involving exchanges, I want to talk about the extremely interesting timing a little bit. And if we compare it to the timing of events that tracks with the 2017-2018 explosion in price, a lot of the same kinds of things are happening now. We not only have a lot of SHx being transferred, we also have a lot of the L1 tokens for the networks Stronghold is able to run on, which are Ethereum and Stellar. And that is important because you are able to provide more liquidity to the exchanges and the market makers in order to establish LPs to stabilize prices and such. Here we are going to get into a roughly chronological order of events that explains the vast majority of the significant on-chain evidence. In early July of 2025, we began to see some hints at exchanges talking about SHx. Here is one by Kraken, and it seems to call out SHx as well as 60, which just happens to correlate to the 60 billion SHx that was locked up in escrow. And on that same day, we began to see some activity in between Stronghold wallets and Kraken. Here we have a lot of USDT being sent on Ethereum, and here we have some supposed evidence of the Kraken Stellar wallet, or one that is associated, which has about 53 million SHx. On July 15th, about a week after that, there was a lot of activity on Ethereum in between a Stronghold wallet and Uniswap, which contained a ton of SHx. And here, they completed a transaction of 94 million SHx, worth about $1.2 million. At this point in time, we could see over 100 million SHx over there. And about 1 week after that, we began to see a little bit about OpenOcean. And it is a DeFi and CeFi aggregator that provides crypto trading across exchanges and chains. And that came from some information off of CoinMarketCap under SHx. Here we have the same Stronghold wallet sending about $58,000 of Ethereum to Uphold. And just 1 day after that, the Stronghold deployer wallet on Ethereum sent even more USDT over to Kraken. Here is a little bit more on OpenOcean, and it shows here that they have been completing a lot of SHx transactions. And it essentially is connecting SHx into decentralized exchanges, specifically Uniswap and SushiSwap, to operate on those platforms. Here we have an example of the Stronghold deployer account transacting into Stronghold SHx.eth through two other wallets that have connections into Crypto.com, Gemini, Coinbase, and Kraken. Shortly after that, we had 629,000 SHx go into X's DEX router on Ethereum. Just after that, we had another 25 million go from main SHx wallet to Stronghold SHx.eth, on top of sending about 27 or so ETH to crypto.com, Kraken, and Coinbase. Here we have the largest transaction at that time, which was 599 ETH being sent to Gemini. And a few days after that, some people outside of the US began to see information about SHx on Kraken, which was also confirmed by a person over in Ireland. At this point in time, we are at August 7th of 2025, and I believe this is from the Stronghold SHx.eth account, although I'm not really 100% sure right now. However, the important point is that we have had over $810 million sent to various exchanges and market makers, which has primarily happened since about 2022, but it has increased a whole lot since about, mid 2024, especially to Coinbase. So it appears as if I got a little out of order here, but here it is actually about 24 hours before that one. And we have evidence of over 20 ETH being sent over to Spot, which is Australia's largest exchange. And I have another from the 6th of August here, which is actually to Gemini, and they sent almost 1,000 ETH for just under $3.5 million. Here we will get a little bit more into the stellar end of things. And we have some connections in between Uphold and SHx. Here is an internal transaction for Uphold where they are transferring a ton of XLM to a wallet with an SHx trust line, which can be shown here. And a lot of that happened on June 8th. We are now over to August 8th. And we are showing some ties into the Stronghold SHx team wallet, which has a ton of ties into Kraken, Binance, and even FalconX, which kind of appears as if it will be related to some kind of an ETF connection, which I won't talk about here, but I'll expand on it soon. And just to illustrate magnitude for that Falcon ETF stuff, we have a single transaction of over 566 Ethereum, which was worth about $2.2 million. And here we have some on-chain evidence of Kraken creating new stellar wallets, which can be shown here, and it specifically calls out Kraken up here. And then right after that, one of the Kraken wallets began to receive SHx, which can be shown right here, except it isn't a whole lot yet at this point. And then here we have a transaction that came from a Coinbase account, and it appears as if it had up to about 55,000 SHx, and they are now down to not holding any. So I would imagine that went into a different account. Here we have a deposit of 3.455 million USDC over to Binance. It appeared as if about 25 million of SHx was sent from the Stronghold main wallet, which increased the circulating supply. And then we have another example of a huge USDC transaction of just over $4.66 million, which was sent over to a Circle deposit account. And just a couple of days ago, which I believe was on Sunday morning over in the US, we had about 50 million SHx on Ethereum coming out of that Stronghold SHx.eth account, which was also involved in deposits at that time to crypto.com, Coinbase, and Kraken. Later on Sunday, August 10th, we had a Stronghold connected Ethereum send over $14 million of Ethereum over to B2C2, which is a liquidity provider. Just about 6 hours ago now, on August 11th, we have about 25 million SHx on Stellar being transferred in between Uphold accounts. We also had another 4.5 million USDC sent over to Circle as well as Binance. And then we also have deposits over to Falcon X again of about 232,000 USDC and about 3.46 million worth of Ethereum. And then we've got one more transaction over to B2C2 for right at 500 Ethereum. So I know that that really particularly exciting. However, it does tie into a lot of my speculation around SHx over time. And it makes me think that something on the scale of what is portrayed here could in fact actually happen.